get that job she wanted.
Welcome into OverDrive. It's Wednesday afternoon. Hello, Canada. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's my friend Dave Feschuk. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. And the Biebs coming in off the top here, very fitting tune.
I requested JP not play Justin Bieber, but it is his birthday, so the man calls the shot on today and most days. Happy birthday to JP. And
happy birthday.
Congratulations to Justin Bieber, who will be part of the halftime show at the FIFA World Cup final, which, of course, you can watch on TSN and CTV on July the 19th. And I will say it's been kind of an empty feeling all day, Dave. No World Cup action for the first time since this tournament started. And I will be completely transparent. When the tournament started, I'm like, whatever. But I have been engrossed in this each and every day. And sure, FanDuel plays a large component. I'm, addicted to some gambling wagers here and there. Addicted, wrong word. But you know what I'm saying. I'm into it. I'm really into it. It really helps.
You're dedicated.
And dedicated, very much so. And without soccer today, it was a little bit of an empty feeling. But still a lot of things going on in the sports world, including big news in the NHL today. Connor Bedard will miss 4 months with a shoulder injury. Now, he suffered the injury in Vancouver training, what was it, like a week and a half ago maybe?
Yeah.
And we weren't really sure the severity of the injury, but tough one for Bedard and for the Blackhawks in the middle of the summer. And that's going to be a tough grind. And let's say like Austin Matthews blows out his knee at the end of the regular season for the Leafs. He's back golfing by June.
Right.
Bedard's in some serious rehab from here until November when he's expected to return. That really sucks for him. And it sucks for Chicago, a team that maybe was going to take a step this year, but without its best player, that's going to be a tough start to the season.
Well, it's a shoulder surgery that he underwent, and it's a concern because, the number of times I've talked to players, ex-players who've had one shoulder surgery, guess what that usually leads to?
Yeah.
Another, and maybe another, and maybe another. And I'm not wishing that on Connor Bedard, obviously. Let's hope he recovers from this, and it's the last we ever hear of shoulder problems with Connor Bedard. But it's one of those. It is one of those injuries that can lead to flare-ups and more problems down the road, especially given, the shoulders are pretty important in the hockey world.
And he's not the biggest guy by any stretch, an extremely talented player. And to add a wrench into this whole situation, throw a wrench in this whole situation, he's an RFA, and we know what is going on with Leo Carlsson and the Ducks and the Flyers. We're still awaiting news on that. Bedard needs a new contract as well from Chicago or maybe from somebody else. And you wonder how this could affect the negotiations with the Blackhawks, whatever's going on behind the scenes. It's really interesting. And we have Steve Warrior, former AGM of the Florida Panthers. He's going to join us in about 25 minutes. He knows the salary cap inside and out. He knows offer sheets and how it all works, the poison pill kind of qualities that the Philadelphia Flyers put forward in this deal with Anaheim. And you wonder, why not Bedard? Why not Fantilli? How have those guys not signed offer sheets to this point? I think the answer is simple. They want to stay where they are versus Carlson, who probably doesn't, if you want to just try to infer the best you can. So Bedard likely will stay a Blackhawk, but they're going to have to pay him more than they previously thought simply because of what Philadelphia and Anaheim have constructed here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great news for everybody that's got a contract negotiation coming up here, right? Because it's reset the market. And it's reset it in a way that I don't think many people foresaw, right? I don't think people saw these types of numbers this quickly in the NHL. But it's absolutely great news if you've got to do a negotiation anytime soon.
That's exactly it. And Bedard, was he worth as much as Leo Carlsson? Probably. I mean,
on potential alone.
Well, that's it. And maybe he hasn't played up to that potential yet. But Connor Bedard, at least the beginning of last season, the first 25, 30 games was destroying the NHL, well over a point a game, and kind of slowed down, and things kind of leveled a little bit for Connor Bedard.
And for the Blackhawks.
And for the Blackhawks, as has been the case for a long time there. But that injury, you wonder what type of crimp that's going to throw into this whole situation, and you wonder what Fantilli's thinking here. And is Adam Fantilli looking for a $14 million a year contract from Columbus? He absolutely could ask for that.
Yeah.
And I bet you heading into the offseason, he's like, 8 would be pretty good, 9. I would probably sign off on that. And it's funny how this just has completely changed the entire perspective, not only for the RFAs currently, but also guys like Macklin Celebrini and Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, eligible for massive contract extensions. They were going to get them anyways. but maybe just pushes it up a little bit higher, closer to the max. And I wonder, do we see a max contract, which is $20.8 million this offseason? I don't think it's an impossibility that that's the case.
It's not an impossibility. We've been wondering if we would see it. You hear agents talk of it, but then it comes to, you got to be the guy to take it.
Yes.
And then you've got to be the guy that takes the heat when people start saying, hey, by the way, now that you're making 20% of the cap, how are you going to put a team around you? Right. And that's why Connor McDavid has never taken it, because he is well aware, more aware than anybody, of the pressures that come when you are a player that demands that kind of salary, and then your team is not good enough around you to win.
For me, the most interesting player is Celebrini, because is he worth the max? Absolutely. You could ask for it. The Sharks would give it to him, and they'd be happy to say, thank you very much for signing.
Would they be happy?
Well, they wouldn't be thrilled.
No,
they would prefer a discount, but if that's what it takes, that's what they'll do. And the same goes for McCarr, really. The same goes for Quinn Hughes. If that's what they want, then that's what they'll get. But it's much like McDavid, who made the call with Edmonton. Here's the amount of money I'm going to take so we could win. And you're going to go out and spend the money wisely that I'm giving up to ensure I have the best chance to win a Stanley Cup. Has Edmonton done that? Probably not. Depending on who you ask. And so that's another layer of this. You're putting the faith into management for going and managing that money that you're giving up to effectively give you a chance to win. Now, you look at San Jose. I would contend some of the contracts that they've given out and acquired over this offseason have been questionable, to say the least. Trouba, massive money. Darnell Nurse, massive money. Mason Marchment, a player I like, big money, big term. Is Celebrini excited by this? Is he saying, you know what, this is a team I'm going to invest in as much as they're going to invest in me? Remains to be seen, but it could come at any point, any day. There's a lot of different contracts that are up in the air, and Celebrini's is included.
Well, it's an amazing couple of weeks in pro sports. Like in the NHL itself, we kind of got lulled into that COVID era moment where the prices sort of stayed the same for a while, right? The cap flattened and salaries stayed the same. But that's not really the rule in pro sports, right? Like the rule in pro sports, and we just saw it with the finalization of the sale of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. The price always keeps going up, right? It was only 3 years ago that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment was valued around $8 billion US. Now they just sold at a valuation of 12. Like 3 years. 13 years ago it was like 2. The price,
incredible.
The price just continues to skyrocket, and whoever are the guys, and you hear them saying, well, it's going to peak, and can't go up forever.
There have been a lot of sales of major sports organizations over the last 2, 3, 4 years, and you keep wondering, okay, why is that guy selling? Why is Mark Cuban selling? Why is this guy selling? Why the Boston Celtics just sold?
Yeah,
and you're thinking, why? If they're making all this money, and the franchise values continue to go up, then why are they doing it? I think about Toronto real estate. Oh, it's 2019. Nothing could go wrong. Up, 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 and eventually the bottom falls out, and we're at where we are in 2026. I think eventually that's got to happen with sports organizations. Like, it's not just going to continue to go up. But it has.
Except that it has. Look, I've been in this business a long time. People have been saying it's going to peak for 30 years, and it hasn't even come close to peaking.
And now you wonder how these organizations continue to, cut corners and the marketing inefficiencies to make the valuations continue to rise, right? And we've seen this from MLSE over the last couple of years, right? We know the cuts that they've made. Shanahan, Ujiri, there's no president. I guess Bobby Webster's now, the executive vice president of the Toronto Raptors. But again, he was promoted from within. There wasn't a new salary, a new person added in. Maybe a good guy to ask about this is Dwayne Casey, who's going to join us at 5:30 to talk about Kyle Lowry, but also talk about the Toronto Raptors as a whole. Dwayne was with the Detroit Pistons for a number of years.
And he was in on the president's search.
That's exactly it as well. So it's a really fascinating time within the sports world. But I would say MLSE, the investment in the Toronto Blue Jays, I know it's Rogers and it's a different entity, but it's kind of all within the same realm now. I don't know if it's a different line in the finances, but it's all the same corporation operating all the major teams in Toronto now. Jays, they're spending a lot of money on the Jays. Kawhi Leonard, the acquisition of him coming over from the LA Clippers, that's going to put the Raptors into the luxury tax. That's going to cost them more money in the bottom line. But those are investments that you need to make if you want to compete. And I don't think Rogers is complaining about all the people they had in those seats and all the beers that were being purchased in September and October last year during that incredible playoff run, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're looking at the Raptors and thinking maybe Kawhi can help us do the same, and that alone would make that venture worthwhile.
Oh, I mean, the buzz has returned. I mean, if it hadn't already, I think this young team, centered around Scotty Barnes and CMB and well, we didn't see quickly in the playoffs. Obviously, he's part of it, and Barrett, and we'll see who else. But even before Kawhi was in the picture, there was a real nice feeling about this team, right? They took Cleveland to 7 games. There was a real buzz in that building during the playoffs that you hadn't felt in quite some time. Kawhi just brings it to a different level. Now, whether or not it's going to be sustainable with Kawhi at age 35, he's in town right now. We can only assume he's being MRI'd and re-MRI'd.
Poked and prodded.
From every angle before the Raptors invest several $100 million in contract extensions, which they're going to do, I think, barring some.
Can you imagine they don't? They look at something. What was the recent example of that where a team got to look at the medicals? I'm blanking on this.
It's happened a few
times. It has happened a few times. And there was one recently, and it was a stunning development. And I don't know if that's how it's going to play out. I'm sure the Raptors, before all this news leaked out, had a pretty good idea through the Clippers, through the NBA, through his representation as to what Kawhi's physical status was at that point in time and where he is right now.
But you never know until you look.
I guess you never know. And a guy like Kawhi, there's a lot of wear and tear there.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking about committing what I imagine is the max for the 2-year extension.
Yeah, $60+ million.
So you're talking about more than $180 million U.S. for the next 3 years. You better be damn sure this guy's capable of playing for you in the NBA. And he looked pretty good last year, as good as one could expect at age 34, second-team All-NBA, averaging close to 30 points a game.
And yet, hasn't won a playoff series since 2021.
That's exactly it. And
lost in the play-in.
Would I say that this year's Raptors team, as currently constructed, is as good as the one in 2019? Absolutely not. Again, people forget, in 2019, the Raptors had Norman Powell, Serge Ibaka, and Fred VanVleet coming off the bench in the playoffs. They were stacked. Yeah. Absolutely stacked. And the bench, listen, I like the Raptors, but it's a deep field in the Eastern Conference right now, and we'll see what LeBron does. Today, by the way, the 16-year anniversary of the decision, taking his talents to South Beach. Could he do it again? Take his talents to South Beach for a second time on this day, 16 years later. And I would probably guess Miami, Cleveland, Philly, Golden State,
been
maybe.
Lurking, apparently spending some time with Draymond Green.
Oh, okay, all right.
Coming days.
And again, I don't think it can be understated. LeBron James is still one of the top, 15, 20 players in the league?
He can be at his best.
For sure. So you add him for whatever it's going to cost you. It's a coup for any of those teams. And if Philly adds him, all of a sudden you look at the Sixers and you can make a pretty compelling case of the best team in the East.
They're scary.
You could.
Obviously, the Embiid factor, what you're going to get.
But you have
Embiid.
Maxey and Edgecombe and Jaylen Brown and LeBron James and Embiid. Let's say he plays 50 games for. Is he healthy in the playoffs? He's still one of the best big men in the league, even compromised. So, yeah, I mean, what LeBron ultimately does could tip the scales one way or the other. And Miami would be another example of that. He joins Giannis.
Yeah.
For nothing, the mid-level exception or whatever it is in the NBA. All of a sudden, Miami looks like a team that can contend, which is why it further complicates things for the Raptors. Do you think the Raptors are this is what their roster is going to be? Or could you see some more significant change coming beyond just Kawhi?
Well, it's very clear that they have to make a change at big, right? We had Leo Routens in here the other day, you and I, and Leo is pounding his fist on the table, get another big. Get another big, because you just can't. We just saw it in the playoffs. You can't rely on Jakob Poeltl. That back problem that he's got, it doesn't feel like that's going to go away. It's not going to get better as he gets older. And then the idea that back problem or not, he's limited, right? He can't shoot to start there.
How many more years left on that deal, Dave?
I think it's 4.
I believe it is 4 years.
That was Bobby Webster's big move, right before the Kawhi move.
That was a disaster. Again, that was the Wembanyama draft where the Raptors could have gone either way. They opted to trade for Poeltl and kind of remain competitive. They didn't really tank like they probably should have.
Yeah, that was when Masai Ujiri was having a problem picking a direction.
Yes, exactly. But
then Bobby Webster said, we're going to extend him. We've seen what we've seen. We like what we see, and we're going to extend him. It hasn't really panned out the way he'd hoped. Yeah. And partly because of health, and that's always a wild card, which is why they're going to be MRIing and re-MRIing Kawhi this week, you can only assume. But part of it is also just, fit and kind of skill set in the new NBA, right? The NBA is changing, and it's not like it was, even 10 years ago. We'll talk to Dwayne Casey about that later on in the show. about the massive changes in the league, and the fact that you need depth. Like look at how deep some of these teams are that have gone deep into the playoffs, right? So I think the Raptors realize they need another big, just not easy to find.
Well, that's it. And you have a lot of money committed to your starting lineup.
Yeah.
Enormous sums. Quickly's making a lot. Barrett's making a lot. Barnes is making a lot. Pirtle's making a lot. And of course, Kawhi is making more than anybody. So I understand the second apron thing is a little complicated. I'm not even sure I really understand exactly how. Nobody does. You leave that to the executives in the NBA to figure out. But that will be complicating for the Raptors and expensive for the Raptors. So we'll see how ultimately it plays out for them. The Jays are in action right now against San Fran. Who knew this dragon that the Blue Jays hitting coaches picked up at a San Francisco Dollarama would change the fortunes of this baseball club? They put up 9 runs yesterday, and it wasn't any of the big boppers, right? It wasn't Springer or Guerrero or Dalton Varsho.
God forbid Vladdy.
No. It was Jonathan Clase who goes yard, and then he puts on the home run jacket shortly thereafter. You could see it on TSN 4 and TSN 5.
There it is.
Goes into the dugout, and he's rocking the home run jacket, and then he's lifting up that dragon on a stick, and they're loving it. Look how happy everybody is. It must have been really cold in San Fran. Springer's wearing a toque.
Yeah, marine layer, baby.
That's
layer.
Not something I would expect for the middle of July. But that was good to see, and hopefully the Jays can keep it rolling because we're getting closer and closer. We're 3 weeks from the trade deadline, and this team, I don't know if they will pick a direction per se, but I don't see a world in which they're sellers. That would stun me. They would have to really suck from here until the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Go 4-15.
Yeah.
It would have to be that bad.
Because the American League is that bad.
Well, that's exactly it. I'm sure the Blue Jays deep down are questioning, okay, can these guys actually turn it around? But we're already paying all this money to these players this season. We're not just going to give it up.
You're only 3.5 out of the wild
That's
card,
it.
right?
And look who you're chasing. You're not chasing powerhouses.
No.
I would also go back to something I said yesterday. Who do they have to sell? Varsho's had a horrible season. Springer's had a horrible season. Those are 2 free agents. Kevin Gausman, you'd get something for, but not as much as you would have 2 months ago.
No.
His last 5, 6, 7 starts have been questionable. So what's the point in selling? You may as well just hold on and pray. And a team that's coming is Detroit, and they've got the most alluring piece of anyone in Tarek Skubal. I think they're 5 games out, but they have the best record in the American League since June the 1st.
Yeah.
So they're coming. That's another team that the Jays are going to have to hold off in the wild card race because Lord knows they're not winning the American League East. It's going to be tough sledding. You got to keep it rolling. The Jays are up 5-0 on the Giants. Look at this. All right. So that's a good sign. This Magic Dragon, Puff the Magic Dragon from San Francisco has really changed the tides of the Toronto Blue Jays. Who knew?
Hey, what was it? A couple years ago, they got rid of the jacket. Now they got a jacket and a dragon.
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
It's a stupid sport. But sports in general, the superstitions and everything surrounding it, kind of dumb. But it's the vibes thing. This team had the greatest vibes known to man last year, especially heading into the postseason. The vibes have been dreadful all year. And how could your vibes be good if you are playing terrible baseball?
Yeah.
But now, 9 runs yesterday, 5 runs already today. Maybe this team's turning it around.
It's a great point about the Dragon, though, because what did we talk about last year? You talk about vibes. The other word that we used was magic, right? That team had magic last year. There was something it made the parts more than, the sum, right? And they kind of just found a way to get things done against a lot of odds, right? Sort of overachieving at every turn. And it was hard to account for that with analytics. It was hard to account for that with projections. It was just like a special year trying to recapture it, but it's not easy to do, right?
That's exactly it. And at least for a day and a half, the Blue Jays have recaptured some offensive magic. We'll keep you updated as to how it goes throughout the course of the evening. So Steve Warrior's coming up. We'll catch up with Christian Jack at 5 o'clock. We also got to talk some hockey today beyond just the Connor Bedard injury because Daniel Alfredsson spoke to the media today. First time as an associate head coach. We learned, Dave, he will be running the power play. So Steve Sullivan, we didn't get any clarity on Sullivan's role yet.
He's not listed as a coach anymore on the website.
So I don't know. I know we know that Van Ryan and Lalonde were not retained.
They were not retained as coaches.
I don't want to find out what happens with Steve Sullivan. But in any case, Alfie's going to be here and he's going to be running the power play. which is a sneaky important role because of how dreadful it was for the vast majority of last year.
Although it turned around.
It did turn around. Again, once Mark Savard was out and they bring in Steve Sullivan, it did turn around, which
right
was
near the top of the league.
Which was inevitable considering the talent you would have thought.
Well, don't tell that to Mark Savard.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he's still thinking, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Would have been nice if you turned it around for us. It was kind of like the Vladimir Guerrero situation, right? Where you're like, okay, Matthews and Nylander and Tavares and Nyes and whoever's running the point.
Yeah,
how
can
can they
work?
be as inept as they were? Eventually, they figured it out. We'll see if the same thing applies to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But for Alfie, I mean, they've got 6 guys for 5 spots on that power play.
Yeah.
Because we know Darren Radish is running the point. We know Matthews and Nylander will be there. Then you have John Tavares, you have Matthew Nyes, and you have Gavin McKenna. Who's going to be on and who's going to be off? You need a net front guy, so I would think it would be one of Nyes or Tavares playing in that role. And we'll see what type of role they give McKenna from the outset. Is he playing on the top line with Austin Matthews? Maybe. Maybe he's playing lower in the lineup. We'll have to wait and find out. But his skill set seems destined to be a power play machine for a very long time. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he started on PP1, and that's a very big part of Alfredsson's role, at least to begin with the Leafs.
Well, that's the thing. Like right now, you got 3 guys for 2 flanks, really, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
You would think that McKenna would be best on a flank, a la the old Marner role. And, Matthews is like the flank, and Nylander, of course, has been ensconced on the flank. So that'll be an interesting one. Like, would Matthews be better maybe in that bumper spot? I mean, he's been there occasionally, but not really on a regular basis. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it. I mean, it is good to have internal competition, though, AK.
They never really had it.
No.
I guess aside from the quarterback, where you're like, is it going to be Riley? Is it going to be Ekman Larson? Should we try someone else? They stayed pretty status quo for the majority of the season. I know Nyes was on and off of it for a point, but it was pretty preordained.
Yeah.
From the outset. And maybe this is something that will help the Maple Leafs. And we'll see what Alfredsson is able to conjure up and the decisions they go with to start. And the other members of the coaching staff, John Gruden, promoted from the Marlies, leading them to a Calder Cup, and Brad Wawrinka, a longtime friend of Jim Hiller. Again, Jim Hiller ran the power play when he was with the Leafs.
Yeah.
From 2015 to 2019 under Babcock.
Good.
So and they were very good. So a lot of power play productivity. And considering those 6 players we just brought up, the Leafs better be pretty high up in the power play rankings with that type of skill.
Yeah, it's interesting the way they've gone, though. It's not a rookie coaching staff, but it's not a particularly experienced coaching staff.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Like Jim Hiller is only parts of 3 seasons as a head coach, although he's been a longtime assistant. I mean, John Gruden was with the Marlies before that. He was on Barry Trotz's staff with Hiller, with the Islanders for a few years, right? But not a ton of NHL experience there. He played briefly in the NHL. And then Wawrinka, he played in the NHL, but he just, has not been on an NHL bench. He was with the Calgary Dinos of U Sports most recently, right? Although he did co-found this True Performance Analytics company with Jim Hiller years ago and still has been running it. So, it's an interesting way to go, right? You got a not a rookie GM, but a pretty close to a rookie GM, a second-time around GM who's been out of the league for 6 years. You got Matt Sundin, who's never held an executive position as your lead executive beyond the GM's chair. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there, AK.
Yeah, no, that is totally fair. And there's a lot of unknowns in the management group and the coaching staff and on the ice.
Yeah.
I think unknowns would be the name of the book about this Toronto Maple Leafs team right now, if you had to write it at this moment. But we're going to learn a lot about how they look when they break camp and as the season begins, because as of now, I mean, you could kind of shrug your shoulders and ask all these different questions about the guys that they have on their roster. What is Bobrovsky going to look like? What is Chris Tanev going to look like? What is McKenna going to look like? What is Austin Matthews going to look like? Darren Radish running the power play, coming off that incredible season in Tampa. What is reasonable to expect from him? So a ton of questions, and eventually we'll get answers. Unfortunately, it's just July the 8th. So we've got a couple months until we can figure all that out.
Well, give this to the Leafs. They've given us a lot to talk about between now and the beginning of
the
training
content
camp, right?
gods are very, very appreciative of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Steve Warrior standing by, former AGM of the Florida Panthers. We'll get his thoughts on what could happen between the Flyers and the Ducks with Leo Carlsson, Connor Bedard's injury, and what Adam Fantilli could be thinking, plus the ramifications around the National Hockey League. This is OverDrive. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's Dave Feschuk. We'll be back with more on the other side here on TSN 4, TSN 5, and TSN's YouTube channel.
CF Montreal, Toronto FC on TSN.
Tomorrow,
this is the moment
on TSN 1050. France takes on Morocco in the quarterfinals. Coverage starts at 4 p.m.
on the world's biggest stage.
Hear it all on TSN 1050. The FIFA World Cup 2026 lives here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
OverDrive brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Aaron Karolnik, Dave Fastchuck in for Brian, Jamie, and Jeff. Dave, if you were to set some FanDuel odds on the Anaheim Ducks matching the Leo Carlsson offer sheet from Philadelphia, what do you think the odds would say?
I think they're pretty high, AK. I think it's pretty chalky. What about you?
I feel like I'm the only person who thinks they're going to let him go.
Really?
Simply because, again, there's a lot of factors here at play. The money, the front loading, whether or not Pat Verbeek, I should say, will stick to his word, right? Verbeek did say, I will match any offer sheet that comes my way. Then an $18 million offer sheet per season comes away. And again, this could be an ownership decision more so than Pat Verbeek. But what it says to me is that Carlson is not steadfast in his belief that he wants to play for the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh, clearly.
He signs the offer sheet. Again, Bedard didn't sign an offer sheet yet. Adam Fantilli hasn't signed an offer sheet yet, which says to me those guys want to stay where they're currently at. Carlson signing would indicate he's open to any different possibilities.
Well, of course. I mean, very clearly, you don't get into that business. There's clearly back channel discussions about would you be interested in an offer sheet? How would you perceive this if we sent it your way? And yeah, to your point, exactly. That's why you don't see them every day, because a lot of them are rebuffed before they even come to light.
Including one today. The Utah Mammoth have matched the 1-year, $4.77 million offer sheet to Barrett Hayton by the New Jersey Devils. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out in a year from now. But let's not delay another second. We have a man on the line who's very knowledgeable about all things CBA and offer sheets in the National Hockey League. He's the former Florida Panthers assistant general manager. A man I usually talk about CFL, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Argos with, but today we're talking hockey. Let's bring in Steve Warrior here on OverDrive. Mr. Warrior, great to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. So you heard Dave and I talking about our thoughts on Leo Carlsson, whether or not the Ducks would ultimately match. We're a couple days away from the decision. Where are you leaning at this point?
I think they're going to match. I think it's an easy decision. I think it would have been an easy decision in any scenario, but I think there's a little wrinkle in the way this offer sheet's structured that when Henry Samueli and his advisors, including his hockey guys, take some time, are going to say, we have a couple outs here. And that's not how the signing bonuses are set up. Now, typically you front load a contract or you front load an offer sheet to deter the other team from matching, right? Because you're loading all this money up front, more money is tougher to match. But if the Ducks look at this closely, there's a huge signing bonus of $18 million in year one. There's a huge signing bonus on July 2, 2027. They keep Carlson a year. It's an awesome player. They might keep him for all 5 anyway. But if they keep him for a year, not only do they have him for 4 and more, but they could flip him at a $1 million base salary with no trade protection in 4 more years. And if you look at what Mikko Rantanen got at last year's deadline at age 29 on an expiring deal, he got 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and Logan Stankoven. The Ducks could get a king's ransom for that. So I think they're going to match. I think they would have matched either way. But I think with this little structural wrinkle, if they have a little spite a year from now and say, hey, you know what, maybe we want to use our cap space elsewhere, I think they got a couple of different outs here.
So, Steve, if you're Mr. Samueli, the guy that's got to sign these checks,
big checks,
to young Mr. Carlson, if indeed you're correct and they do end up matching, how are you perceiving this transaction in terms of the way you look at your hockey people, Pat Verbeek in particular, who's in charge of the Anaheim Ducks on the executive level? Is this something that concerns you? Is this some sort of a managerial malpractice to allow it to get it this far, or is this just the way the game is played and now you're in it?
Yeah, I know AK is a big tennis fan. I mean, I'd call it an unforced error, right? It's tough when you're a negotiator, especially one who's really confident, who has a real, defensive style like a Pat Verbeek. So sometimes just sit back and say, listen, I don't have the leverage here. And sometimes you got to take a different line. And in this case, it sounds like they were negotiating. They were throwing about numbers. They didn't see this coming, obviously. It puts them in a really tough spot. Probably puts Verbeek in a tough spot with his owners saying, let's match and bite the bullet on 40 mil. Even a billionaire doesn't love that. Flipping it around, though, like there's hockey and there's business. And if you're the owner and even if you're the team, I think you sit back and say, listen, this is a great young player. Let's separate business from hockey. We're infinitely better with Leo Carlsson in our room than outside of it, as would any team. But you look at Anaheim center depth, it's thin after him. So I think that's the move they make. And then in terms of how Samueli and the group sort of do a correction of errors and make sure something like this doesn't happen again, and it might, given who they have coming up the next 2 summers, definitely got to deep dive that too.
Steve Warrior is our guest. He's the former assistant GM with the Florida Panthers. And Steve, you've been on the station before. You told us a story how you and your team back in the day were working on different offer sheets, including with Nikita Kucherov when you were with the Florida Panthers. And that drew a lot of eyebrows, raised a lot of eyebrows. Can you explain the behind the scenes, the due diligence you do when you're putting an offer sheet together? Because it's a lot more than just the contract and the front loading and the money. There's a lot of due diligence behind the scenes just beyond that then meets the eye, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of work. You really want to make sure you keep your side of the street clean too, right? When I say that, I mean, when we were looking at doing an offer sheet in the summer of 2016, what I made sure we did leading up to that summer is we locked up all of our core players who might be targeted. Even though offer sheets weren't too common back then, we had Barkov, Ekblad, Huberdeau, Vincent Trocheck, Riley Smith. And there's a reason we signed all those guys before that summer. When we were thinking about offer sheet and Kucherov, because, once the cat's out of the bag, and especially once you're the team launching that offer sheet, it's a copycat league. Teams will come after you. And we weren't prepared to lose one of those players, especially if that offer sheet got matched and someone retaliated. And, that's still pretty commonplace. Anaheim, has some vulnerability coming up too. But you look at a team like Carolina. Carolina's been super aggressive the last 2 years, right? They went after Bouchard. They basically got Keandre Miller under threat of an offer sheet to New York. Then they structured a deal. But it's no coincidence Carolina's been super proactive in locking up, the Stankovens, the Jackson Blakes, even the Brandon Bussies to make sure that as aggressive as they aren't sort of vulnerable to retaliation easily.
Steve, we were just talking about the idea of a max player in the NHL coming soon. I mean, I believe if this is a deal that goes through with Carlson, he would earn something in the range of 17.3% of the salary cap. Of course, the max is 20. What do you make of that? Is it when you look at the depth of the best teams and the number of players you need to win in this league, is there a route to having a max player on your team and still being a Stanley Cup contender?
I think there is. I think it's way easier to say we spent a little bit extra on a franchise player and didn't lose him than to say, hey, we have $4 or $5 million to throw at fourth liners. There's different approaches to that. NBA teams have done it, pretty easily. But, even looking at a team with the Oilers, right? They saved a lot of money on Connor McDavid. They threw it around a little bit liberally, some might say, on some of the, defensemen and goalies they allocated it to. But I think with the cap going up, it's going to be in the $130, $40 million range. I think you can build around those franchise guys much easier than you can say, hey, we lost to Leo Carlsson. We have an extra $10 or $15 million. Let's go see who is on what's become a super thin free agent market nowadays.
So, Steve, let's say the Ducks match. Philly's sitting there and thinking, okay, well, we couldn't get Leo Carlsson, but Connor Bedard is an RFA. We could approach him. Adam Fantilli, we could also approach him. Those would be the two guys, the two centermen who, in theory, could be the fallback options for Philadelphia. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes and maybe. I don't think anyone's going after Bedard. I think Chicago matches before the ink's dry on that one. Fantilli's possible. Columbus, they've sort of had a little bit of turmoil. We saw a little back and forth on Zach Werenski around the draft. And, listen, if Fantilli was an easy negotiation, he'd be signed by now, right? And he's not. And there's chatter about Marchenko as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if I saw someone, whether it's Philly or another team, go after Fantilli. I would be shocked if someone bothered to, sort of irritate a Chicago or a San Jose in another year on a Bedard or Celebrini, because I don't think that gets anyone anywhere other than some short-term theatrics.
The other news around the league today, Steve, is Utah matches the offer sheet for Barrett Hayton. What did you make of that?
That was a fun one. Like, it's fun when these offer sheets have a little bit of spite thrown in on them, and there's some backstory there, right? Where it sounds like, New Jersey with a new GM thought they had a deal for Hayden at the draft. Utah may have strong-armed them, pun intended, so to speak, and didn't make that deal. And then Jersey said, aha, we got you on an offer sheet for a player who, even if you match, he's a UFA this summer or next summer. So you really have to use him. You won't get any value of trading him down the line. I think it makes sense Utah match. He's a good player, 4.7. 7's a manageable cap hit. Second-round pick comp is pretty pedestrian for anyone, but especially Utah with that deep prospect pool. So love the storyline and think it was sort of a vanilla type of decision for Utah in the end.
Steve, terrific to see you. I'm disappointed you're not wearing your Taylor Elgersma jersey during this interview, but maybe the next time we have you on, you'll bring that out for us, okay?
You got it. I'm still holding out hope for a Drew Brown start this week instead.
Yeah, I don't.
I
I don't doubt it. Thanks for the time, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Steve.
That's Steve Warrior, former NHL AGM and huge Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, massive Blue Bombers fan, which I respect immensely.
Great insight.
And excellent insight. And it's really interesting. He told us this story on my show on First Up about how he and his team in Florida in 2016 were planning this massive offer sheet for Nikita Kucherov, which I never heard that story.
Yeah.
And oftentimes in pro sports, Dave, as you're well aware, it's the stuff that doesn't happen that's more interesting than the stuff that does. And I think this Leo Carlsson thing is, again, I think it was Dreger who reported there were 4 teams prepared to give an offer sheet to Leo Carlsson, amongst others. Like, so who else?
Yeah.
I mean, Carolina clearly would have. They're always looking to do offer sheets. Those guys love that in Carolina. So, like, who are the other teams that are looking to do it? And the fallout of this and whether Carlson stays or goes is monumental. Again, you talk about Dylan Larkin, a player who's kind of hanging in limbo right now. He wants out of Detroit, but apparently won't expand his list of teams to go to. Think about the value of Dylan Larkin relative to Leo Carlsson now at half the price. Mm-hmm. I would argue they're comparable players right now. Do I think Carlsson will be better in the long term? Yes.
He's 21 years old.
He's much younger, yes. But you're talking about half the price.
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden, Dylan Larkin's value, I think, is grown exponentially to a team out there simply because of this offer sheet. So there's all these different reverberations around the NHL because of this offer sheet, and Carlson's making the $18 million regardless. Now, is that fair for these other teams like Anaheim, for instance, with Cutter Gauthier? Is that fair that he's making 14 now? He just scored 40 goals. But how could you say to him, hey, Leo, that's kind of an anomaly here. You can't use that against us. Of course you can't.
Of course you can.
And that's what happened here in Toronto for all these years, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
It's called
this guy's making this, and a rising tide lifts all boats in the case of NHL salaries at this point in time.
Except if you're a GM and you're trying to stay disciplined, and you want to have your own internal salary cap, then you've got to do your best to avoid that from happening, right? And having one of those deals infiltrate your room. And teams have been trying to do that for a long time, but when the salary cap rises and it's a percentage of the cap you look at with regards to contracts more so than the actual number, again, a contract signed 5 years ago versus one signed today is dramatically different. Of course. So, and that's just how that wouldn't necessarily apply in other sports, but it's just how it's going to continue to transpire in the NHL. You're going to see some outlandish salaries for guys you wouldn't think would be in line for them. I think Leo Carlsson is first in line. Again, when Kaprizov signed his deal for $17 million with Minnesota, we were all like, wow, that's a big number. He's a great player. No one would deny that. It's the price of doing business. But he was going to be a UFA at the end of the season. Carlsson is an RFA, so it's a different situation. And it's one that I think is just so incredibly fascinating. And I cannot wait to see how it plays out and what Philly does if Anaheim matches, how Anaheim proceeds with its contractual situation, because they're going to have to make subsequent moves to clear space, to sign Gauthier. They might have to ship out other guys. Again, Philly is screwed Anaheim so badly here. Well, Pat Verbeek must just be so pissed. Anaheim and Pat Verbeek in particular. Totally fair. They screw themselves by not having the foresight to see this coming and thinking no one would do this. Yeah. But it's a lesson to be learned for all these teams around the NHL. Don't let your guy get to RFA. Well, and it's the same thing we were talking about with franchise values. The price only goes up. So, and I think it's almost like a psychological barrier because to your point, you've got this sort of COVID era flat cap salary structure that's been kind of running the league for a handful of years here, right? And so many of the good players are signed under those terms. Yeah. So it's hard to compare them to the new terms. But the new terms, to your point, are going to blow those numbers out of the water for players who do not blow those established stars out of the water as skill, in terms of skill set.
Yes, I think you're spot on. And I think another really interesting wrinkle as the years go by here, this year, next year, the year after, the salary cap continues to rise. What percentage of teams actually spend to the salary cap and start maybe opting to spend closer to the floor than the ceiling?
Well, Carolina just won without spending to the cap.
Well, that's a totally fair point. And I just wonder, when you get to 120, 130, 140 million, the ownership group's starting to look, yeah, we're not spending all that money. You're going to have to find ways, inefficiencies. You're going to have to use draft picks more effectively, because we're not paying what Toronto and Boston and New York and Chicago, the big market teams with deep pockets are. And I think for the Leafs, because it always comes back to Toronto, that's going to be an advantage in 2-3 years down the road, because the Leafs will be spending the cap. That's a guarantee, regardless of where they are in the standings. And who knows? Maybe do they have Austin Matthews and Zach Werenski this time next year signed to long-term deals? I suppose that's possible, but they're going to be spending, and that's going to be an advantage for the big spenders, because it's going to be a league of haves and have-nots. There will be teams that aren't willing to spend to the salary cap, and those will be inherent advantages for the teams with deeper pockets.
Well, it should be an advantage as long as you spend it wisely.
That's totally fair.
But, I mean, I'm telling you, there's a trend in pro sports right now, and we're seeing it. We saw it in Toronto when, the new ownership took over, and all of a sudden, we don't need a president that's making $15 million running the Raptors. We can get the guy that's running the Raptors as Masai Ujiri's right-hand man to run it for a lot cheaper. And that's what's happened. We don't need Brendan Shanahan making real money to be the president of the Leafs. We can just get a GM and have Keith Pelly hanging around and get Matt Sundin in there at a discount deal relative to what Shanahan was making. There's a real feeling that you can do it cheaper, right? And then when Tom Dundon, who owns the Carolina Hurricanes, probably the most notoriously cheap of all the pro sports owners, just paid an NBA coach peanuts
and gave him a one-year deal. Yeah, poor
deal.
Mike Inori. Yes,
yeah, former Raptors assistant Mike Inori, who we all know very well here in Toronto, had to take what his colleagues in the coaching business saw as a very punitive deal for his first chance as a head coach. Guess what, though? Tom Dundon now has street cred. Tom Dundon now has a championship ring, a Stanley Cup, to say, my way works. I can do it lean, and I can do it mean, and I can do it to win. I'm cheap, yeah. Guess what? I'm also smart. I know how to spend it wisely.
And he hired the people that helped him implement that vision very well. Eric Tulsky's been a revelation as the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's call it what it is. The way that he's reshaped that roster has been extremely impressive. And, of course, Rod Brindamore. Yeah. You have those franchise cornerstones in place. You pick the right people in charge. That goes a long way, and be able to execute a vision like that from Tom Dundon.
And guess what's bad news for the rest of the league? Both those guys work very cheap.
Oh, yeah, that is for
compared to the salary structure that's been in place.
I don't think Eric Tulsky's one of the highest paid GMs in the NHL. That would be a guess.
He's not.
That would be my guess. But he's the guy with the Stanley Cup ring at the end of the day with his cup.
Well, and I think to your point, though, there's going to be people making the case we don't need to spend to the cap. We're just going to spend wisely.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to do it like the Carolina Hurricanes have done it. The Hurricanes have been building this for a long time, and Eric Tulsky didn't just step into that chair. He was the assistant for many, many years and been studying this very closely for, a decade plus. But people will try to copy the cheap route. And there will be those teams that just spend to the cap no matter what. I don't think either is a guarantee for success.
Dwayne Casey's going to join us at 5:30. We'll talk about Kyle Lowry. We'll talk about where things stand in the NBA. And we're waiting for a decision from LeBron James and an announcement from the Toronto Raptors with regards to Kawhi Leonard. Christian Jack in about 20 minutes as well to look ahead to France, Morocco tomorrow, 4 o'clock. My goodness, cannot wait for that game. That will be incredible. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's Dave Feschuk. More OverDrive after this.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continues Wednesday afternoon. Aaron Karolnik, Dave Feschuk. Apparently, we're twins, Dave. We look very similar. This coming from Father Torque on Twitter. Is Overdrive using AI? The two announcers look very similar. And that's a huge honor. You're a very handsome man, and I'm very honored to be mentioned in the same breath as you.
I don't think it's a compliment for you, okay?
I disagree. Again,
You're one of the studs of King Street. I'm an old sports writer.
dude, maybe 10 years ago.
All right.
No longer. Trust me. That is not the case. I get the Logan Stankoven comp quite often, which I think is fair. Again, my parents were unsure whether or not they had a child that they just forgot about, and Logan Stankoven was the result.
You never
because
know.
He does look like me. I will concede.
You never really know everything about your mom and dad.
I probably don't want to, but that's a very nice compliment from Father Torque on Twitter. The other comments not so favorable, but whatever. We go on. You can't be worried about the thoughts of others, Dave. You just got to do what you got to do. And we should quickly mention Gavin McKenna. He's having quite the summer. Of course, goes number 1 overall to Toronto, hanging out with the Nelk boys. You know the Nelk boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Won a Rolex in some golf competition. There they are.
There they are.
Man, the Nelk boys are jacked. Look at these guys.
Jeez.
That's up on TSN 4 and TSN 5. So there's McKenna on the right with the Rolex. And then I saw him in a picture with John Summit recently, who Doogie's going to see in October in Toronto. Doogie and I might go together, although, the paparazzi surrounding Doogie might be problematic for yours truly. But, yeah, Gavin McKenna's having himself quite the summer as the number 1 overall pick. And he had John Chaika, the Maple Leafs GM, up at his place in the Yukon. So what could possibly go wrong? I mean, everything has just been perfect for Mr. McKenna to this point.
I mean, this dude lives a life.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings John Chaika up to the Yukon and rides some sort of off-road vehicle up the mountain and has John Chaika closing his eyes and praying for his life.
There's John Summit right there. I know you didn't know who that was, David. There's John Summit.
John Summit.
I would probably say he might be the biggest guy in EDM right now. Is that fair to say, Doogie? Yeah. So
I'm guessing, so you go to an EDM show, a John Summit show.
Yes.
We're talking, how much cologne would I be smelling?
Well,
Doogie would have a light
John
spray.
Summit would definitely be smelling
There's
it.
a lot of
no
cologne.
doubt. There's a lot of...
Doogie would be among his people.
That is
the cologne.
Certain. Christian Jack, I don't know if he's going to John Summit. He's going to join us in hour number 2, as will Dwayne Casey, the former coach of the Raps, as Overdrive continues here on TSN 4, TSN 5, and TSN 1050.
Red Blacks, Elks, Thursday on TSN. CFL lives here.
Is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Can you feel it now?
It's hour 2 of OverDrive, a gorgeous Wednesday afternoon here in Scarborough, Ontario. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. We're filling in for Brian Hayes, Jamie McLennan, and Jeff O'Neill, the first of whom is currently on the golf course at a little place called Cabot. Oh, there's the picture right up on TSN 4 and TSN 5. He looks quite pleased. And, you go to Cabot, you're a little worried about the weather. You're out there in Nova Scotia. Yeah, you could get some inclement weather. It looks like Brian is getting a perfect day at Cabot Cliffs or Cabot Links. I'm not sure which one that is, but
Look, he's got the custom head cover. That's a hazy head cover.
yeah, it's
Look at that thing.
Peter Millar. I mean, this guy's a sponsored athlete.
Yeah.
He is the man. He is crushing it. And that's the only reason he's not here today. Not summer vacation. He knew that Cabot was in the cards, and that's a place I would very much like to go. I've had some good fortune be on some good golf trips, but Cabot has not yet happened. Maybe for my 40th birthday.
There you go.
It's a couple years away. Still got a couple years to go, but that would definitely be at the top of the bucket list. I think Brian's been there before. This is not his first rodeo, so like Duthie goes like 3 times a year.
Oh, yeah, that's like Duthie's backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Our boy Rod Black loves going to Cabot.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of friends of ours are heading to Cabot, Dave, and you and I are here.
Not us.
At TSN HQ.
I popped into Cabot Citrus last winter.
Interesting.
That was intriguing.
Down just north of Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
North of Tampa. Very intriguing.
They got a lot of good stuff going
Really
up
interesting
the
courses
Cabot.
out there.
If we continue to talk about Cabot enough, someone from Cabot will call us and invite us.
Yes.
So, Doogie, cancel Christian Jack and Dwayne Casey. Let them know they won't be necessary. We'll just talk about Cabot for the next hour.
We're jumping on the charter.
Yeah, that's right.
Very short.
Is there a charter?
Well, I'm sure Cabot's got
Yes.
one.
Yeah, that's a good
They could
point.
bring
That's
it around.
I'm just kidding. We would never cancel KJ.
No.
We're fired up to welcome him to the program in a couple minutes. There is no World Cup action today, which has
Yeah, it
left
feels
a big
weird.
void in my heart and my mind because I've been loving the World Cup so much. The coverage on TSN has been so exceptional. The final game in Vancouver was played yesterday amidst some controversy, and Switzerland, Colombia, that game was awesome too. And tomorrow's France, Morocco, which will be a spectacle. Could have been Canada. Should have been Canada. If we found a way to find a goal in that first half, who knows? Maybe Canada will be playing against Mbappe and company tomorrow. And as one of my buddies said, it would be an honor to get destroyed by Mbappe in France. And he's right. Because Canada would have been, I don't even know what type of underdog they would be. Enormous underdog to France, who is the favorite to win the tournament at this moment, and that is totally fair the way that they have looked. The battle for the Golden Boot is absolutely incredible between Messi and Mbappe, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane. Like we got on, I believe it's on Saturday, Norway and England.
I know.
Like that game is so incredible to see Erling Haaland up against the English. And Erling Haaland's probably my favorite athlete on earth right now. Just the videos that have come up and him talking about his diet, how he only eats like raw meats and
raw
eggs
milk
and weird stuff. Listen, if that's what it takes to be built like Erling Haaland, we all should be doing that.
Organ meat.
Is that what it is?
Have you ever gotten into the organ meat?
No, I don't see myself.
Hearts
I don't think
and
they
the
have that on
livers.
Uber Eats, Dave. I don't know if that's
Hearts and
something.
the livers and the kidneys and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, for Erling, it's working out very well.
Oh.
For the Norwegians, it's been just an incredible run. And again, the English, to lose to those guys, again, if I told Luke Wildman, passionate English fan, of course, that's his home and native land, that they get Norway in the quarterfinals, beginning of the tournament, he would have been thrilled.
Yes.
Thrilled, because no one really saw Norway getting to this point. But they've had an unbelievable tournament, and they're led by, who is, I would guess, Holling's in the conversation to be the best player on the planet right now.
Without a doubt.
He and Messi and Mbappe, probably the 3 guys you look at first.
Harry Kane.
And Harry Kane somewhere in that mix.
Somewhere.
And Jude Bellingham with England has had an incredible tournament as well. But it has just been so much fun. And we'll get to see Messi up against the Argentinians following Norway and England, and Spain and Belgium play on Friday. It's just the best part about this tournament. Again, it's been in North America, and for a lot of the uninitiated soccer fans like myself, again, do I know some of these names? Of course, I know Messi and I know Ronaldo and I know Mbappe and Kane and all these guys, but it has just been incredible, the star power that has shown up and thrived in this tournament to the point where they've taken over. And you look at the race for the Golden Boot, it's just all the best players performing at their absolute apex. And what a treat it's been to watch so far in this tournament. Been incredible.
It really has. And the only thing that's kind of marred it, AK, and we're going to talk to Christian Jack, who I believe is going to join us now.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that's marred it is the specter of fixing.
Yeah, no, you're talking about Egypt yesterday and VAR. I totally understand it. Well, let's bring him in. Joining us on the Maple Toyota hotline is the aforementioned Christian Jack. KJ, great to see you. How you feeling on this day off? It's been quite the grind for you and the team here, so I'm sure you're enjoying it, spending it with us.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks. Just here in Vancouver after yesterday's last game here in Canada and getting ready to go to LA for Spain, Belgium. So, yeah, it keeps going.
Oh, baby. Well, let's talk about this tournament as a whole. And, yes, Dave mentioned the specter of the match fixing and the VAR and some controversies. But when you look at the totality of it, KJ, and just how quality the football has been, the games that we've seen, and the players playing at their absolute best. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for if you were everybody involved with the World Cup?
It's been great. You're right. I just listened to you as I was coming on about the stars, and I think, it's been something that I've been covering for a while. In Qatar, there's been this shift in the last World Cup where, when you go to the stadiums and the team gets announced and the flags come out, there's this roar. And then when the stars come out and they actually touch the ball, there's another level of roar. There's another level of for your Ronaldos and your Messis and Mbappe's. It's almost like a concert level scream, a different kind of feel to people's in awe of these superstars. And the game has changed a little bit that way. That, of course, people still celebrate teams and countries and the unity that it brings together the World Cup, the pride of the support in your country. But the stars, it has never been this way in this sport to this extent. Yes, World Cups have always been connected with superstars going back to way before any of us were around, But, Pele's had his World Cups and Maradona's had his World Cup and Garrincha had his World Cup. And a lot of them had a World Cup. But to have this amount of unique individual superstars performing so well is unprecedented. And so I think that has been really great for the World Cup. And as you alluded to it, just to be on our North American soil as well just makes it really special.
Christian, the other thing that always accompanies a World Cup is controversy. You can't avoid it, but it feels like this one's a little bit different, especially in light of the Egypt-Argentina game, where Egypt is now, publicly coming out and saying they've suffered an injustice and they were wrong and they cannot remain silent, giving some of the egregious calls that went against them. And for Argentina, in Argentina's incredible comeback, we've also had the red card incident with the USA and Balogun being able to play in a way that did not reflect kindly on FIFA. I know I covered that Portugal-Croatia game where the Croatian coach was saying, hey, the VAR has taken the soul out of the game, and there was, sort of suggestions that FIFA wants Ronaldo to stay in the tournament, and that's why Croatia lost. I mean, how much do you make of all this?
Here's what I make of it. I put it in two different buckets. One, the buckets, let's go with your three examples. One of the buckets for me is how difficult the sport is to officiate. And if we want the referees to be the experts in their field and then give them the video support to do so, once they've used that video support to do that, and they know the laws of the game way better than anybody, and they go out there and enforce those laws of the game using that video, if that still does not go our way, you have to ask, why is it not going your way? Is it not going your way because of the laws of the game do not support your argument? Or is it not going your way because you necessarily didn't get the fact that you were able to keep a 2-0 lead, or you were able to not score a goal in the last second of a World Cup game to take it to extra time? So for me, the idea that an official is going out of his way to support what FIFA wants to keep a certain player or a certain team in a tournament is ludicrous. The second bucket is the Balogun situation. Talking of ludicrous, an unprecedented strike by FIFA and their committee to allow a player who should have been suspended to play in a game that ultimately cost their team in a performance that shadow, was a shadow above everything else that they'd ever played in, right? Like they were super in the group stages. They were very good in the last 32. They looked like a team that carried the weight of a nation very easily. I went to see them live in the World Cup, and they looked like a team that could go out of it and handle a Belgium team that haven't been great in this World Cup. And in the end, it just completely melted down. So, the entire world being against them, but Belgium, in fact, that they said that it motivated them more. You have to look at it, and it was just lunacy, to allow a player to play in that manner. And FIFA have got a lot of questions, and Infantino has got a lot of questions to answer from this. And I'm not sure how he'll survive it. But the other examples of it, I understand it's a very emotional game. And I understand there's people saying that goal should not have been ruled out against Argentina. But the laws of the game state that in their opinion, it was a foul that negated Argentina having another attack that led to it. It doesn't matter how far away it is. It's still part of the laws of the game. So if you watch a hockey game and your big playoff game, you can go back 2 minutes earlier and have an offside review. It doesn't matter about the timing. It's still part of the laws of the game. And yes, it's frustrating, but I just have a very hard time in believing that these decisions are being made by superstar officials who are the best in the world, just so FIFA can keep their best players in the tournament.
Christian Jack is our guest here on OverDrive, and we've got 4 incredible games in the quarterfinals on TSN and CTV and on TSN 1050. It all starts with France, Morocco tomorrow, Spain, Belgium on Friday, Norway, England, and Argentina and Switzerland on Saturday. Is there one of those 4 games? I'm going to guess you're into the England-Norway game, KJ. That was something at the top of your mind. But which of these games do you think be the most compelling on the pitch?
Yeah, I think the Norway-England game is the most compelling because of all of the storylines talking around it. Let's talk first about Haaland, who is obviously the best number 9 in the world, and the world is seeing that now in a Norway shirt, not just a Man City shirt. But this is an individual that was born in England, obviously, with his dad Alfie playing for Leeds, and the connections to playing, obviously, the Premier League defenders that he played in the Brazil game and how he manhandled them, and now he gets to go up against Premier League defenders again. And it's become a superstar World Cup, as we talked earlier, and he has the ability to win that game by himself. So that's a big storyline. There's so many great storylines, though. The holders in Argentina, who we just talked about, have come through 2 games against opposition that many people would expect them to outclass, and they've had to fight and dig deep to get through. So, talking to a lot of people and analyzing those games, does that show the flaws of how they're going to be exposed eventually, or does that show their strengths? Because a true champion is full of mental toughness and the ability to believe they're never beat. And so I don't know if the Swiss are going to have enough for them, but can Argentina go all the way? That's another question mark. Spain are purring along defensively, not conceding anything. But, does Lamine Yamal have another gear to join the superstars that he hasn't been able to do in this World Cup yet because he's been injured against the Belgian team they'll be expected to beat? But I think Spain will look at that game in a quarterfinal of a World Cup and go, we don't just want to win this game. It's now time to turn up the jets and find another gear if we're going to win this World Cup. And Morocco-France is awesome. It writes itself. There's so many storylines there. Again, a lot of Moroccan players linked to France being born there. And as well, the fact that the French team, I think, are the undisputed favorites for a reason because they are purring. They are in top gear. They have not really had too many difficult performances, even though they squeezed through Paraguay. So there's storylines in all 4, to be fair.
Hey, Christian, when you look at this from a Canadian perspective, you talk about this is a superstar World Cup, and we see these next-level guys doing these amazing things that are so compelling and get the entire world absolutely enthralled with this tournament for a reason. Like, in your read of the Canadian situation and the way we're developing players, is there a chance for Canada to develop a player of that magnitude down the road here? Is that in place for us right now, or does something have to change for us to be able to provide our team with a player of that stature?
Wow, Dave, I think we need like 3 hours in a pub to talk about that answer.
Okay.
To be honest,
Can we do it after July 19th, KJ? I want to come too.
That's one of the biggest questions in all of Canadian soccer. And in a show like this, I don't really know if I have that amount of time, but let's start by thinking positive, glass half full. These tournaments will help that. The ability to fuel more money into the game fuel more love into the hearts of people, and to see the connection on that team and the ability to put the country before the name on the back, I think is a lot of things that can help. But, the facts are the facts. We haven't produced that kind of player for a long time because of a lot of different reasons, right? There's a lot of lack of resources in this country. There's a lot of operationals in the shadows. There's a lot of issues around the funding of the sport in this country. Far too many people pay far too much money. And there's a lot of people making money that shouldn't be making money on the back of some people. It's not necessarily a inclusive sport. It's an exclusive sport for certain family members. So there's a lot of factors to that. We are fortunate to have been able to produce the likes of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, Stefan Estacio, and others. But a lot of that development has happened away from Canadian borders. But this is not just a Canada problem. We spent some time in the US in this World Cup, and they're having those debates now, right? After getting thrashed by Belgium, they're getting those debates now about people saying Pulisic is not as good as they thought he were, and this is a team since the World Cup that they hosted in 1994 that they thought would be a genuine superpower. And you could argue that they've never, for a country that big, they've never actually produced a world-class player themselves.
It's a really interesting question. Again, it ties to basketball, right? We saw the Canadian team just dismantle the Jamaican team, 40-point favorites in Hamilton a few nights ago, and the rise of Canadian basketball, the rise of Canadian tennis. We're seeing O'Shea Aliassime go up against Djokovic and take it down to the wire. We're seeing golf, all like Nick Taylor and Corey Connors, and the rise of Canadian soccer has been incredible to watch as well. Our country is just becoming a superpower relative to a lot of other nations around the world when it comes to the overall sporting architecture. I think that's a really, really cool development, and hopefully that continues in the world of soccer. KJ, thank you so much for the time. Safe travels to LA. Spain, Belgium, not a bad way to spend a day. So hopefully you enjoy it on Friday. And again, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Appreciate it, fellas. Keep up the great work. Pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's Christian Jack, who's doing an awesome job on the TSN broadcasts for the World Cup on TSN and CTV. And he joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. It is time to Toyota. Check out the Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Tundra pickup trucks, both available as hybrids. Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland and the Maple Auto Mall. What do you attribute that to, Dave? As someone who's covered sports in this country now for a long time, the rise of our country as, again, in basketball, where do you think Canada ranks? Top 5 now, for sure, right?
Sure.
Top 5 for sure. And again, 20 years ago, we had Steve Nash and not all that much else. Todd McCullough, shout out to him.
That's right.
But in tennis, again, the same thing would probably apply, just how good Felix is, and he's getting closer, and others. Certainly, we've seen Bianca Andreescu emerge and fall, and hopefully she's able to get back to the heights that she once reached. And in golf, we haven't had since Mike Weir back in 2003 when he won the Masters, but it's been just an incredible rise in Canadian sport. And can we get to that point in soccer where we're actually, and I know Canada took it to Morocco and it was a valiant effort in the first half, but we saw Canada and we saw Mexico and we saw the United States all bow out at the same time, right, in the round of 16. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they kind of hit their head on the ceiling, those three nations, as far as where they're at this moment. Can you get to the point where you're actually up there with a European superpower like a Brazil or a Spain or a France? Is that going to happen in our lifetimes? I don't know, but I'm very excited to find out.
I mean, you'd love to see it, but I think the thing that you see that separates these teams in a lot of ways, it is that next level guy that can just make that one burst of a play that changes the game, right? Like you talk about Canada dominating Morocco for the first half, but couldn't score. Like, you need that one player or two players that can kind of combine with each other to break through and absolutely put you on the board.
It just seems like it's that striker, right? It's that one guy who can just get the opportunity and finish that opportunity whenever it comes. And
striker and the facilitator. Yeah. We may have the facilitators.
Maybe.
And maybe at our best, some of our guys are pretty darn good strikers, but they're not those next level guys that are, to your point, up for the golden boot and leading the World Cup in scoring.
I mean, it's easier. Just find an Erling Haaland or a Kylian Mbappe or a Harry Kane or a Lionel Messi. I mean, it's easier said than done. These are the best in the world. And I actually did not know Erling Haaland was born in England. That was an interesting little nugget there from KJ. Perhaps I should have known that. But in any case, I'm sure the English are like, please, can we have this beast? Like, we'll take him. But I think they're pretty happy with Harry Kane as far as that position goes. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, Jonathan David's a great player. On the world stage. He's a highly competent player, but he just couldn't get it done in those 2 games against South Africa and against Morocco. And he had his opportunities. Yes, he scored the hat trick against Qatar, but
took care of business.
Well, I did. Again, that's great. That's great.
And they won.
It's great.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I guess I kind of just did by rolling my eyes.
Yeah.
But it's just in those games where you need the difference maker, Canada just at this point in time doesn't have it. And my guess is by 2030, by the time the next World Cup rolls around, that difference maker, maybe, at least we hope will be that difference maker, is someone we've never even heard of before.
Wow.
It's a 16-year-old kid right now.
That's a good point.
Is just playing somewhere, I don't know, in Alliston, Ontario, or Newmarket, or Calgary. Who knows where it could come from? But that's what's most alluring about this progression is, yes, it's 4 years, but it's a slow burn. And there'll be different tournaments, and the friendlies, anything international will be gobbled up by the general public because of what this team accomplished. And more eyeballs is great for business for Canada soccer. And I have a hunch it's going to continue to grow.
It should be. But KJ made an interesting point there about the pay-for-play stuff. Like the price of youth sports in North America right now is skyrocketing, and they're like the U.S. Congress is looking at it right now. It's very similar in Canada, right?
Well, it's crazy. You would think soccer would be cheap, like to hockey.
Should be.
Like to hockey. Think about all the equipment you need in hockey versus soccer. I mean,
but we've got this travel sports culture
you're
where
right.
you got to be making a lot of money as a family to afford the hotels and afford all the travels and the trips to play on these so-called elite teams. And I think there's a lot of people saying that's not the route to take if you want to develop elite players. It's certainly not the way it works in the club system in Europe, which is obviously difficult to reproduce because it's been in place for centuries over there. But yeah, that's going to be an issue. Like the whole. Look, the U.S. has got 10 times the population we have, and they haven't been able to produce a striker of that quality, right?
You're right.
And so they're saying the NCAA model isn't great because the NCAA window for soccer players doesn't work. It worked okay in basketball, obviously, but guess what? Hasn't been a North American MVP in the NBA for an awfully long time. The European model
was James Harden the last North American MVP?
In a while, right?
I believe. Yeah. Well, and again, there's such a divergence when it comes to North American sports where there's so many different options, right? In Europe, I'm not saying they only play soccer, but that's option number one immediately. It's kind of like here in Canada with hockey.
Well, the hockey's less so now.
Well, less so.
Expensive.
It is so expensive, but still number one as far as the desire for a lot of kids who are growing up. But over there, you're talking about Belgium and England and Spain and Portugal and goes on and on and on. Brazil, Argentina, that's you're growing up, you're playing soccer.
Yeah,
100%. Every kid in the playground at recess, assume they do it over there, is playing soccer each and every day. And yeah, we do that here in Canada. We do that in North America, but it's not to the same extent. I don't know how you change that philosophical approach where you can't just be like, okay, no one's playing basketball anymore. Everyone's focusing on soccer. Like, let's just say in the United States, no one's allowed to play football or basketball anymore. All you're allowed to do is play soccer. Mm-hmm. Would they be the best in the world in 10 years?
I mean, you think Erling Haaland is imposing? What if LeBron grew up with a football,
sure.
a soccer ball on his foot?
Yes.
Right? Like, I mean,
that would probably be helpful.
Pretty good on those set pieces. Like,
throw him in there. Him and Erling Haaland battling in front of the net.
Wouldn't that
could be something? But I don't know. LeBron's the blanket example. Oh, LeBron, if he played tight end, he would have. And it's
greatest
probably
we've seen in a long time.
And it's probably true. But I don't know. If I'm one of these kids growing up in the United States, I look at Donovan Mitchell's contract and say, you know what, basketball's not so bad.
Yeah,
I'm down for $75 million a year in a couple of years,
without a doubt.
So, there's a lot of good options for the great athletes in our country across North America, and I guess that'll continue to be a conversation until the next World Cup, which I'm really looking forward to in 4 years' time. But clearly, a lot of excitement for tomorrow's action against France and Morocco, Spain, Belgium Friday, Norway, England, Argentina, Switzerland on Saturday. 4 incredible games in the World Cup quarterfinals. Dwayne Casey is going to join us on the other side. We'll talk about Kyle Lowry. We'll talk about Kawhi Leonard as well. We await the official acquisition of Kawhi Leonard. And maybe we'll ask Dwayne what goes on behind the scenes with an MRI and all the physical
X-ray,
stuff.
ultrasound, every kind of scan.
How does that work?
Every kind of scan you could scan, he's getting scanned.
I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's Dave Feschuk. More OverDrive after this.
This summer, let's level up.
No question, no diamond. Gonna rise with the finest. I don't need to remind you.
Game on.
Tomorrow.
This is the moment.
On TSN 1050, France takes on Morocco in the quarterfinals. Coverage starts at 4 p.m.
On the world's biggest stage.
Hear it all on TSN 1050. The FIFA World Cup 2026 lives here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Hour 2 continues. This is Overdrive. It's Wednesday afternoon. Aaron Korolnik and Dave Feschuk with you until 6 p.m. We're brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Dave, you were down there at the Kyle Lowry ceremony yesterday. Kawhi Leonard was there.
Yeah.
Larry Tannenbaum was there. The Raptors superfan was there. All the heavy hitters were there. What was that experience like for you?
It was a very festive occasion. You know, all the heavy hitters. Keith Pelly, the rejuvenated Keith Pelly, who was getting blamed for running the Leafs into the ground.
Everybody loves him now.
Now turned him around. So yeah, it was a fun occasion, and I thought Kyle performed as you'd expect. I mean, he had the usual Kyle sort of marginal grumpiness, and then of course he throws in the aspiration line. Did you hear him use the word aspiration while he was talking about Kawhi?
You think that double entendre was intentional?
Nothing Kyle Lowry does is not intentional. He's a very, very cagey individual.
Well, let's bring in a man who knows Kyle Lowry well and who we love here in the city of Toronto. He was a Raptors head coach from 2011 to 2018, the winningest coach in Raptors history, former coach of the year, Dwayne Casey. Back on Overdrive. Hey, how you doing, Coach?
Hey, Aaron. Doing great, Aaron. How you doing? I tell you what, you get award. You should get an award for working with Dave. And,
an award?
He's a tough guy. An award? Yeah, you're a tough guy to work with.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
How do you feel about that,
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Dave and I became friends, and he's a good man, good dude.
Well, let's talk about another good dude in Kyle Lowry. And I'm sure you and him butted heads over the years. You guys spent a long time together as Toronto Raptors. What do you remember about young Kyle Lowry coming over in a trade? I believe it was Brian Colangelo who executed the transaction. Your first interactions with Kyle, how did that play out? And then just to see him yesterday having his jersey retired by the Raptors. I mean, it must really go full circle for you.
I tell you what, it's beautiful to see. When I remember the day that Brian approached me about Kyle Lowry as far as a possible trade, and we talked through what all happened at Memphis, what all happened at Houston, and so we knew, the challenges with Kyle and where he was in his career, but also too, we needed that toughness, that edge that Kyle brought to the table, and we knew we needed that, and so, we got him at the same time, Aaron, and I think Dave knows this. I was trying to establish a culture. We were in a rebuild mode, so we were building. And at that time, I was trying to keep things going the right way, one way, my way. And so it was tough. So Kyle came in, and to Kyle's credit, Kyle had some great ideas. I mean, he had come from the Houston analytical atmosphere, and so Kyle was shooting the threes and transition threes and offensive rebound, playing the possession game. So I said, whoa, that's not what we're going to do. So it started out pretty rough, the first year, just because it wasn't saying I was right, wasn't saying I was wrong, but I was trying to establish our culture and our foundation, which we finally did, which led to a championship. But it was tough going, and also too, on top of that, if you remember, Jose Calderon was our starting point guard. So Kyle came in with a mission. He came in, I felt sorry for Jose because he kicked Jose's little butt every day in practice. So he came in, and then finally they traded Jose. And then, too, at that time, we started to take on Kyle's personality, the toughness, the honoriness, taking charges, loose balls. And so, the team took on his personality, and that's when we took off.
Well, it's so interesting, Coach, when you think about how, as much as, they took on Kyle Lowry's personality. Bobby Webster yesterday brought up the fact that, the 50-win season started when Kyle got there, and obviously it led to the culture that you helped build and the championship culture that ultimately brought them over the line in 2019. But there were some tough moments, right? Like, there's no secret that, Kyle was traded by the Raptors at one point in a deal that was nixed at the 11th hour by the Knicks back in 2013-14, and he was nearly traded in the championship season, which Bobby brought up yesterday with a little bit of a smile on his face because there was some buy-in issues in the Kawhi era. I mean, what does that say to you, Coach, about the kind of the way an NBA career can go one way or the other, and sometimes it's fate and sometimes it's a bit of luck?
Dave, I tell you what, that's a great question. One thing about that is I never forget the night Kyle was about to be traded. I got wind of it in talking to Masai, and he was traded. And I remember Kyle having boxes at his condo, packing up and everything. So he was out. But what happened with that, Knicks transaction was it motivated Kyle, I thought. I thought he had a bigger chip on his shoulder. He was going to come in and show everybody, hey, this is what you were about to lose. And it motivated him. I don't know if you remember that summer he went to Vegas, which he does every year to train, and he came back probably 15 to 20 pounds lighter in great, great condition. And he came back that next year on a mission. And, he's, again, that trade motivated him. I wasn't there when he was almost trading the championship year, but, it was no secret that fact that, we were trying to change things up at that time. And Masai called me and told me that they had a deal, a supposedly deal for Kyle. And, some of the best deals you don't make are the best deals you have. And that one turned out to be the best deal because, one, it motivated Kyle. I think also, too, it helped mature him into a better leader, into a better teammate, into a better follower, whatever you want to call it. And I thought that, helped solidify his career the way he was going to play. And nobody's perfect. I mean, you're still going to – I don't care what NBA coach you are, you're going to have those moments. You're going to butt heads and disagree. And but it was easier to disagree and align with Kyle after that, before that. But then, you could just see the maturity each and every year that Kyle came back to the season. And, again, his relationship with DeMar got closer and closer. So you had a two-headed monster in Kyle and DeMar. Then we brought in the bench mob, which I call them, Pascal, Fred. He was a leader to them. And what I would do is sneak him into that bench mob group. So you had an old head with those young guys, and that's where they got their reputation. So, he grew, was more flexible, was more, humble, I guess, after the lack of being traded or whatever you want to call it. But then that's when we really took off. I think we got up to top 5 in offense, top 5 in defense, and he was a big part of that.
Our guest is former NBA Coach of the Year, Raptors head coach from 2011 to 2018, Dwayne Casey on the line here on OverDrive. You're in the Pistons organization now, Coach, and I'm curious because we have all seen Kawhi Leonard, sauntering around at that Kyle Lowry press conference. I think the belief is he's in the midst of some kind of physicals. Can you take us behind the scenes as to how that works? You have a big transaction, whether it's a free agent or a trade. You have to execute the physicals. How does that all work?
Well, you come in, you take a physical, and, you probably get the information from his previous team, but then they come in, take a physical, go through everything, and, if something shows up, you agree, and, you accept it or nix the deal or whatever. But I don't see them doing that with this trade. But I thought that was a deft trade by Bobby. Some people see it as a gamble, but I think where they are ready to take that next step, bringing a talented player in to play next to Scotty Barnes is a heck of a move. So, but, all the physical, a lot of that is just kind of formalities more so to speak, because you probably get information from the Clippers or where the former team is before he gets there, unless something happened between his last physical. So I tell you what, the East got a lot better. Toronto, you can go right down the line with different teams. Indiana's going to be a different team. So it's going to be a tough Eastern Conference. And then, by the way, you have the defending champions in New York that's not going anywhere. So it's going to be an exciting year in the East this year.
No doubt about it, Coach. I mean, the Raptors, of course, coming off a year where they came within one win of facing your Pistons in the second round. Now they've got the revamped roster with Kawhi Leonard. Let's talk a little bit more about the East and how daunting it's going to be. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, LeBron's still hanging out there, and there's a feeling he may come east. Miami got Giannis. You look at Boston did some, a strange thing with the Jaylen Brown transaction, but Philly got better as a result. How scary is that as an executive with the team that had the best record last year, with all these comers trying to dethrone you from that number one spot?
Well, that is a challenge, and it should, get our attention, and it's good because sometimes you can get comfortable, Dave, as you know, and I think all these other teams around us getting better. I know our guys are back in the gym already working, getting ready for the Philadelphias and for the New Yorks and the Miamis, and people are underlooking Atlanta. Atlanta is also a good team. Orlando, took us to the seven games last year. So the Eastern Conference really solidified ourselves, and now Kawhi there with like you said, Toronto being within one game and going to the next round. They're way ahead of schedule, I would say, from what people expected. So you can go right down the Eastern Conference, Dave, and go to almost everybody that. And again, there's no incentive to play for draft picks anymore. So everybody's going to compete and putting their best foot forward. So next year, when you see some teams that had, 55 wins or 57 wins or whatever, 60 wins, we may not have it, but still have a good season.
Coach, awesome to catch up with you. I know your old friend Brian Hayes isn't here. He's down at Cabot playing golf. I know you said he represents the NBA medium here, NBA media, here in Toronto. A clip that they play all the time. That's the type of reverence they have for you, and we feel the same way. So thank you for joining us.
That. Well, I appreciate that, Dave. Great talking to you, and look forward to seeing you. I think they're going to have a ceremony up there for Kyle, and well deserved, and is happy to see. And I was telling somebody earlier, putting Kyle's jersey up in the rafters, and also we have Vince Carter, hopefully DeMar DeRozan. That area. When you're going through it, you don't appreciate it, but when you look back, it was a golden era for Toronto basketball. But yet and still, solidifying a history for basketball. Now you bring free agents in. They can look up in the rafters. You got Kawhi coming back, which is a feather in the city's cap and the organization's cap. But now you can look up in the ceiling and see all the jerseys. You're developing a history of basketball, and now you can sell that history. And Kyle and DeMar and Vince and all those guys are a big part of that, and it's beautiful to see.
Well said, Coach. Thank you so much for the time tonight. Hopefully we can chat with you again soon.
Okay, Aaron. Take it easy, Dave.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
That's Coach Dwayne Casey here on OverDrive. When he brought up how, we know Vince and Lowry now are up there. DeRozan eventually will be up there when he retires. Kawhi, I never thought had a chance because of the one season that he was going to play with the Raptors. Now there's a strong likelihood, at least contractually, he's going to play 4 total seasons with the Toronto Raptors. I guess which brings me to this question. What would quantify a successful Kawhi Leonard return for the Raptors? Is it, winning an NBA title seems far-fetched, but is that what it would take to look back at this trade and say this was a quality move?
Why is it far-fetched, AK?
We talked about just how competitive the East is, and then on the other side, you got to go through one of OKC's San Antonio.
Well, it's competitive, but it's not top-heavy. To me, there's no, Wemby may become an untouchable at some point. There was moments in the finals where you thought, and in the playoff run, where you thought there may come a time where nobody can beat this guy, right? And yet, somebody beat him, right? And, you could say if you had a coach that had a clue on the sideline,
probably would have helped.
It might have helped for San Antonio to not blow leads and continually get outmaneuvered. But so maybe Wemby becomes that untouchable. I don't know, but there's also health concerns there. But the rest of this league, because of the second apron, you just saw the Celtics say we got 2 stars, we only want 1. And it's going to be very difficult to build anything close to a dominant super team that's miles and, to use the old Golden State phrase, light years ahead of everybody. And that's why, to me, this makes sense from Bobby Webster. You got to throw your hat in the ring. Anybody can win it, man. I'm not sure anybody who saw the Knicks doing what they did, as much as they were expected to be an Eastern Conference contender, they weren't a championship lock by any measure, and yet they won it.
Well, and I'd also say, let's say Kawhi is healthy, plays like he did last year, and you pair him with Scotty Barnes. How many duos are better than those two guys at their best? It's a short list, a very short list.
And the other D word, too, that's a great duo. It's an incredible defense. I mean, you've already got the 5th best defense this season without Kawhi.
And Kawhi was racking up the steals last year. Still an awesome defender. Maybe not what he once was, but still really, really good.
And the thing is with Kawhi, okay, he's one thing in the 82 practices, as he likes to call them, right? He's a completely different thing in the playoffs. If they can get him to the playoffs healthy,
just get him there.
It's just like anything else. Like if you need one guy to stop one possession, Kawhi Leonard is as good as anybody still.
Yep, that's exactly it. And that's what the Raptors are banking on. They're making a huge investment financially and with regards to what they gave up to bring him in. And we'll see how it plays out. I cannot wait to see the Raptors on the court on opening night. It's going to be a ton of fun. And again, the Leafs too. Like there's just a lot of intrigue. And it's funny you mentioned Keith Pelly, a name like people were disgusted by.
Yeah.
Like what, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago? But now all of a sudden, and again, he's put people in charge who are making brash transactions. And winning the draft lottery, I don't know if that would call that a brash transaction for the Leafs. That's great fortune. But obviously since then, everything has gone pretty well for the Leafs, depending on how you view it. And they're a brand new team. Their bottom 6 is new. They have a new goalie, got a new coach, a new coaching staff, new general manager, new advisor. It's a brand new team for the most part, save some of the pieces that were there last year, some of the quality pieces. And the Raptors have Kawhi Leonard again.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable how the perception of these two teams, the Maple Leafs and the Raptors, have changed since the end of the regular season, respectively. Again, who would have thought that any of this was possible? But MLSC, and led by Keith Pelly, these guys deserve credit for definitely restoring relevance. Again, not that the Leafs were irrelevant by any stretch. I would argue that they're
competitively irrelevant.
Very well. I was going to say their incompetence was relevant, but people are excited about that. People are excited about the Toronto Raptors right now, and that hasn't been something we've said in conjunction for a long time. So we're still got to wait for October, but I think everybody in this city's fired about those two teams in particular and what they're going to look like.
Yeah, and I think there's, Keith Pelly is a guy.
Thank you very much. It's Aaron, but it's okay, Dwayne.
Yeah, there you go. You should get an award for working.
I'm still waiting for that award
right off the top.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Listen, you're a hard hitting journalist, Dave. You're going after Dwayne and asking him all the questions.
We had some good times back in the day, but ultimately, I always could shake hands and have a laugh. But yeah, you know what? There was that moment as the Leafs were spiraling down the standings where it was like it's all Keith Pelly's fault, which never really made a lot of sense to me. I mean, it was what happened to this team was based on the fact that what Shanahan did for 10 years.
Yeah, and of course they lost their emotional leader. That's a big part of it, according to Craig Berube, which maybe we'll touch on the other side. I'm Aaron Karolnik. That's Dave Feschuk. We are live on TSN 4-5, TSN's YouTube channel, of course, live on TSN 1050. Make sure to check us out on Crave later tonight.
CF Montreal, Toronto FC on TSN.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Winding down here on Overdrive, Aaron Korolnik, Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. Thanks to Dwayne Casey for joining us. What a guy. Must have been fun to cover Dwayne Casey.
It was.
He's a character. He'll call you out. If he doesn't like something that you wrote, I'm sure, or said, he won't be hesitant to let you get a piece of his mind.
Yeah, he took me down one day. I forget what it was, but he really got after me for something I wrote that he didn't like, and it was a heated conversation, but a respectful one. And just because Dwayne's so passionate, he's the kind of guy that makes you kind of want to run through a wall when you just listen to him talk. You know what I mean? Like
he's a coach.
Got that incredible enthusiasm to him. So even when I wrote what I thought was right, he didn't really make me disagree with myself, but I respected it. You know, like he fought for himself, and
you got to respect that
too.
As well. And yeah, I always find it interesting how that works behind the scenes with coaches and managers and Toronto sports, even these days. Like, who's sending them clips and different newspaper clippings, articles? Are they seeking it out themselves? Do they want to see the criticism online? I'm sure it differs from person to person. You would probably know. I'm sure you hear from a lot of them. But
they have a service.
There's a service.
They read everything, man. They read everything.
Yes.
They see everything. They hear everything.
And hopefully they're
listening right now.
I don't doubt it. Hopefully they're listening to my best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks. Assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. All right, so I like the under tonight in the Yankees game. That is for sure. Garrett Cole, Shane McClanahan, the under of 7.5 runs. We're back in George Kirby and the Mariners as well. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Same game parlays available for every MLB game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19 plus. Physically located in Ontario. What a day it's been, Dave. Special start time tomorrow for the two lookalikes. That's the name of our show, apparently. We look the same. We look AI generated, you and I. 2 p.m. before France and Morocco. And we'll have Stephen Caldwell on the show as well in studio.
That'll be a joy.
I can't wait. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to leave Jack Pool Plaza in Vancouver to be sitting next to us. Thanks to the fellas behind the glass. Everybody enjoy your evening. Overdrive will return tomorrow at 2 p.m.